first case tonight, and this is coming off of a couple different things. So we just had a really successful drug theory in regards to the Idaho 4 that we were talking about, right? Okay, well, there were a couple comments made when we were on live stream where I told people that I believe that 90% of violent crimes have to do with drugs. And I stand by that.
Like, even if it isn't a drug offense, there's some kind of connection to drugs that
Correct.
motivates the crime.
That motivates the crime in some way, okay? So I started looking at some of the other cases that we've been looking at, right? And by now you guys will have seen the picture already, but one of the very popular cases that we have out right now is the Murdaugh case with Alex Murdaugh, okay?
Yeah, and people are still putting out videos on it. Like, I see videos all the time.
This thing hasn't slowed down, okay? And what's interesting is right from the beginning of that case, and we started off behind. We weren't making content at that time, all right? We just started picking up on some of these cases as we transitioned over into the crime community.
Yeah, we covered the Murdaugh murders when he was in trial.
Yes, we did. But because we started behind, we're kind of picking up on some of this as it's going. So, like, some of the things that I feel like I would have noticed if the case was going on and we were covering it, I'm just now picking up after. So, like, I started looking through some of the cases that we were covering to see if there were any drug connections. This is one that popped up, like, right away, and I thought there had to be. And I'm sure you guys, if you guys have been following it, I know that you've heard about some of the drug theory with this, right? Well, I have some major questions with this, and hopefully I'll be able to bring up some compelling evidence so you guys will think that these are interesting questions too, you know, in this situation. So how much do you know about drugs involved in this case?
I mean, what I know is that he claimed he had an addiction to opiates.
Yep. And that's what most people know of it, other than some shady connections and things like that. For the most part, what people think is you have this man who had an addiction, okay? And by the way, this will be interesting later, but by the way, he said that he has such an extreme addiction that he was taking 60 tablets of oxycodone a day, aka Percocet, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. But then most people think of him as a white-collar crime, all financial crimes, and then, of course, the ending of his wife and son, right? Mm-hmm. Well, as I started researching this, I came across some really amazing content creators, and I didn't write the name down. I should have. You guys will see them here. I'll post them. I'll post the words on the screen so we can give them a shout-out. But as I'm digging into this, there's a lot of creators out there that started going far back, like 80 years back, because as we know, the Murdaughs has kind of ran this town for, 100 years probably? His great-great-great-grandfather started as one of the leading prosecutors or like DAs in the area, right?
Mm-hmm. District attorney, yep.
Yep, in the area, and then his son followed, his son followed, his son followed, and Alex was really the first one who didn't follow, right? Well, as I'm digging into that, a couple things started popping up. I heard about Operation Jackpot, which in South Carolina, Operation Jackpot was the first time the feds came in such a controlling fashion where they were trying to shut down pot and they were shutting down illegal gambling rings all at the same time here. And some ways they did it was taking over people's property, like the businesses they own, the houses they have, the cars they have, right? And, I mean, it was really strong-arming the community into taking over these areas. Well, as we're looking through some of those, some interesting topics came up where the second Murdaugh that took that office was around the time of Prohibition, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, Prohibition, as you guys know, alcohol was illegal. Alcohol is a drug. A drug is any substance that can create mind-altering, mood-changing,
affect your central nervous system.
Effects to you, in your body. So, alcohol is looked at in the same way as any of those other drugs, as we call them. Well, during this time, Murdaugh was, and what was his... Buster, that's it. So, because the son's named after it. So Buster Murdaugh of that time was part of a huge ring of people that was protecting the stills in these areas for alcohol smugglers to get away with the crime. And it went so in depth, and there was so much fraud to it. There ended up being 9 people in this ring that the feds found out about, okay? And what they would do is they would set up fake operations for their own police to go bust down the doors of these stills where they were making alcohol.
The DA.
Because he's the DA, while protecting the real operation. So when the feds looked to see who was doing what they asked and said with Prohibition, they looked like they were getting it done. But all those stings were fake stings. They weren't even stills that were being used. They weren't making alcohol. They weren't doing anything. It was just all a setup so they could protect their own, right? So there's some historical evidence of how the Murdaughs were. Now, when I'm looking at this, my first question is, okay, well, that was 3 Murdaughs ago. How does this correlate up to today? Which brings the next one up that I could find, and that's Alex's dad. He was a part of Operation Jackpot. And what's interesting is he was also the first connection to the Bulwers. Barrett Bulwer. Have you heard that name?
I don't think so.
Right. So it's been pretty buried. This guy is a convicted trafficker and smuggler and...
Trafficker of drugs?
Yes. And, well...
Maybe various things?
Everything. So basically... What I got from all the information that I was reading and watching is that they were involved in everything, okay? And their family had deep ties.
So are they like basically a mob? More like a gang?
It could be, but you guys got to remember what's really interesting in that area is the way things are ran is they're good old boys. Okay. So
it's the South, yeah.
Yeah, these are country dudes that by all appearances, look like they're businessmen. They are white collar wearing, tie wearing. I mean, even on their days off, they have shirts tucked in. They're wearing boat shoes. Like, these are not the guys that most people imagine as a trafficker. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, we'll bring it up to the 1980s here where, and I'll walk you guys through the conviction of Barrett T. Bulwer. So Barrett T. Bulwer is the direct connection to Alex Murdaugh. Okay.
Okay.
They were family, friends, and seen everywhere together.
What's his name again? Say it again.
Barrett T. Bulwer.
Barrett?
Barrett.
Oh.
T. Bulwer.
I thought you said Garrett at first. I was confused.
And everybody in that area calls him Buller.
Buller?
Yep, but it's spelt Bulwer. Boulware. But
okay.
In the South, it's Buller, which is kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
Well, Bulwer and his dad got stopped by the U.S. Coast Guard, okay, in the early 80s. I believe it was 1983. Yes. And this is how traffickers would traffic. And this is all based off FBI evidence here. But they would have two boats. They would have a safety boat and they would have the dirty boat, essentially. The dirty boat has all the dope, all the people, all the illegal activity. And then you have the clean boat as the lookout and separate, okay? And the reason for that, you guys, is if they started being approached by the U.S. Coast Guard, they would sink the dirty boat. They would just sink it.
Oh my gosh.
And have the drugs go to the bottom, okay? Well, in 1983,
and I'm sure they didn't care about the people, did they?
They didn't. No. In 1983... Oh, I'm sorry. I got to take a step back here. The one I'm talking about is in 1980. So in 1980, the U.S. Coast Guard came up on the Bulwer boat, and they said something fishy was going on in the report. They didn't know exactly what it was. They came up on two boats. One of the boats was sinking, and on the other boat, there was 13 people on there. The Bulwers and 11 Cubans.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And what's strange, you guys, what's really strange when this is being investigated is there is no further information. They didn't check documents. They didn't check if they were documented people. There's no mention of if they spoke English. Nothing, okay? All we have is a statement of 11 Cuban nationalists.
That they just saw them together on a boat.
On a boat.
A boat was sinking.
Yep, and they told them that everything's good, everyone's safe, they're gonna go to shore, and everyone got let go. Nobody got charged in this, and this is in January 24th of 1980.
Well, at least they didn't sink the people with the boat.
Yeah.
Which is what I was suggesting earlier.
I mean, the U.S. Coast Guard was coming up on them, so that would have been an issue, and the Coast Guard would have then gone onto that boat to try and save those people, and I'm assuming would have seen the drugs, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, that is the first run-in that we see with the Bulwers, and then the one that I started talking about, the next encounter we have is February of 1983. We have documents showing that Barrett T. Bulwer and his father get stopped again by U.S. Coast Guard. And for anybody that doesn't live on a coastal town, U.S. Coast Guard patrols all over the place. And what's interesting is South Carolina has always been a hub for drug smuggling. And based on all the research that I was doing, it's because of their three main ports. And then on top of it, they have an undocumented amount of islands.
That's so funny because I know somebody who was in the Navy, who's in my family, who says that they were on a naval ship or saw one coming in, and apparently it was told to them that there were drugs being smuggled on that military ship into that port. When they were there. And apparently it's something that happens frequently.
Yeah, could be.
On military ships.
It could be.
Which is like total random, I have no idea if that's true.
That's one of those
but they were told that by another military person.
That's one of those situations where I'm going to assume the best, right? Military, police, things like that. I would need to see evidence before I bought onto that.
Maybe they were coming up with a bust or something, but I would need evidence to believe that too.
Yeah. But luckily, we have evidence here, and it didn't have anything to do with military, though. The Coast Guard were the ones that were coming up on these boats,
right.
Okay? So back to 1983, we have Barrett and his father on a boat, okay? The U.S. Coast Guard comes up on them, and they get caught with 17 tons of weed, 854 bales of weed, okay?
Bales, straight up bales, like hay bales of weed.
They are caught red-handed, okay?
Dude, what?
And they're charged, right?
Yep.
Well, what's interesting in this case is they ended up not getting convicted here, okay? There was a key witness, you guys, and that key witness was the captain, the driver of the boat. The owners were the Bulwers, okay?
Okay.
Well, they took these guys in, and law enforcement decided to lean on one of them, and they leaned on the captain. The captain rolled and agreed to be testimony, so a star witness for them, okay? Well, 3 weeks before the trial, he unfortunately walks out into traffic and gets hit and killed.
Dude, no way.
Yes. Yes. And who was the DA, the prosecutor here?
Murdaugh.
And Murdaugh, the grandfather, was friends with Barrett T. Bulwer's father, okay? So we're creating a history here. We're creating a timeline where we have two different occasions where the Bulwers were involved with trafficking and smuggling drugs, and they were being essentially maybe protected. Once that star witness got ended, the DA said that they didn't have enough evidence to press the charges, and they were dropped.
Yeah, and Alex, he wasn't a DA, but he was a prosecutor, right?
Not for the state, no. He's in private. Alex was private. He did not follow his family's footsteps.
So was he a defense attorney or a prosecutor?
Defense, private. He didn't work for the state.
I thought you just said, and guess who the prosecutor was?
Yes,
Murdaugh.
his father. His father.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
This was in 1983.
So this is Alex's father.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting stuff mixed up in my head. Okay.
So we have now two proven incidents where these guys are caught. The Bulwers are caught red-handed, okay? Well, in 1988, right before Barrett starts being seen in the beginning stages of hanging out with Alex, he's pulled over in Georgia, and the statement was that him and his wife were going on a trip to Florida and then back again, like a turnaround trip. Well, he gets pulled over. He gets caught with 7 pounds of weed and an ounce of cocaine. He catches these charges, okay? And remember, this is in Georgia, so it's outside of the protection of the South Carolina area, right?
Right.
He gets charged with this, okay, and convicted of this. However, no time served. So we think that it was like a soft conviction, a slap on the hand, where somebody from South Carolina could have reached out to them and said, hey, look, like we understand the position you're in. We understand you can't drop this, but this is a friend. This is someone we're investigating. This could be something. We need them to not do any time. So they ended up doing no time here, okay? Well, fast forward now up to 1998. This is where we really start seeing Murdaugh and Barrett get into bed with each other. So this is where they first purchase a property together and start being seen hanging out around town all the time, okay?
So did Barrett's father and Alex's father, were they the ones that were...
They were like buddy, but because that was in the 80s, the 70s, we don't have enough evidence of that. But we have evidence of Alex and Barrett, okay? Now,
and we have some sketchy stuff in the 80s where it's like maybe
absolutely.
they were covering for them then, and then we have the grandfather before that with Prohibition.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's proven like lineage, kind of.
Yep. Well, in late 1998, this is the first financial partnership we see with him. Murdaugh Holdings and Bulwer purchase waterfront property together for $150,000, okay?
Barrett and Alex invest in property together.
A piece of waterfront property together, okay? Now, what's interesting is over the next 10 years from that time, from 1998 to 2008, Barrett and Alex purchased 9 total waterfront properties together as partners, okay? And here's another interesting thing. None of these properties are ever built on. All of them have a dock, and that's it.
Weird.
That's what I'm saying.
So they're their own little trafficking ports where there's no eyes on them because they own the property.
Yes, I don't have the name right now, and I should have wrote it down. I regret not doing that. But the content creator I was watching, he is literally an investigative journalist, and he has contacts in the FBI and some of the other, 3-letter law enforcement agencies. He said he brought all this evidence to them and laid it out on the table. And they could tell him exactly what was going on without even knowing the details. This is the perfect setup. These 2 islands are drop-off zones. These other islands around it are lookout points. Strategically placed there to be able to watch large shipments coming in. Okay?
Jeez.
Right. So I don't understand why we don't hear about this. This could be another situation where, why do the drugs get left off the table? Why are we not talking about one of the most important pieces in some of these cases?
I mean, drug involvement is a huge deal when you have murders. If they're involved in some heavy trafficking like that, that's something you have to look at.
I agree, but, okay, and this is the question I have, and I'm not the type of person to jump to conclusions and automatically say there's a conspiracy and all these officials are involved, but I try and put myself in the mind of one of these officials, okay? And if they start seeing evidence that he was tracking, they might start feeling like, oh no, I remember this time Alex called me and asked me if I would do this for him, and I didn't think nothing of it because they didn't have all the information, and then all of a sudden they're scared. You know what I mean? Was that involved in the trafficking? Could that have been? Okay. So, remember.
Yeah, because he's a working attorney in that area.
Yes.
They totally call in favors for each other and stuff.
And he was Barrett's attorney. And these were family friends, you guys. And here's another really interesting fact where I do not have evidence for this. And this is important to state, but according to this journalist, there are multiple firsthand accounts that while these guys were, vacationing together with their families, while they were holidays together, eating together, hanging out together, whatever, Barrett and his family and Alex and his family talked openly about trafficking. And according to one of the first-hand accounts, Barrett had a picture in his living room above his fireplace of a 60-foot boat with Cuban guys holding up large bags of cocaine. And this was their close family associations. And we have 2 people that were killed here. Why isn't this getting brought up? You know what's interesting, though? In June, the feds started looking into Alex for trafficking.
So before the murders, is that what you're saying?
No. This is just recently.
This
is still going on. Alex could get more charges.
So you're talking about this year, this June, they just started looking into
it.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so back to where we were. By 1998 to 2008, Murdaugh and Bulwer had co-owned 9 properties, okay? And this is where it starts getting interesting. What is the name of Alex's home? What is it, Musell? The Musell house?
I don't remember, honestly.
I think it's Musell, the Musell house, okay? So, that property? Have you heard of how he got it?
I don't think so.
So, this is how they got the property, okay? So, they lived in Hilton Head before, and Murdaugh started going into business with Bulwer. Bulwer owned this property, okay? And Bulwer's wife, according to the financial documents, sold the property to Alex for $5.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy. But in the legal documentation, it does state that while we sold it for $5 because there has to be a monetary value on all purchases, that's because we traded. Essentially, it says we traded of like value of $790,000 for this property. Okay.
Okay.
You want to know something else interesting?
What?
Did you know that land, Musel, has an airstrip?
Wait, his house?
Has
where he lived?
An airstrip.
Yeah, I have it right here. It's 4147 Moselle Road.
Moselle Road, yeah.
In Islandton, South
has
Carolina.
an airstrip, okay?
That's wild. I think actually I might have heard that. For some reason it's ringing a bell, but I can't. But I don't think I ever placed any worth on it.
And what's interesting, and I have a statement for you guys. What's interesting is in the description of that house when it was posted last to be sold, it says thorough and easy access to a stream. It leaves off the airstrip. It talks about how easy the access is to major highways. Okay. Now you have the FBI that says in their training documents, so the most critical part of every smuggler's operation is finding an isolated spot to unload the drugs. The best sites feature a dock close to the ocean, an airstrip, the absence of neighbors, and a proximity to major highways. That Musel house has all of it.
So it's close to the water?
It's close to a stream. It is void of neighbors. It has an airstrip.
Okay, but
it has everything.
But if it has a stream, that doesn't really matter. What is a stream going to do? They're talking about like an ocean or a river.
I mean, I don't know. Do you know how big the stream is?
No, but I'm about to look it up on Google.
It can be fished, but I don't think they would say that if it's like a little 2-foot stream. I think we're going to be surprised pulling that up. That's one area I didn't look into.
Okay. But that is super crazy. They have ports, they have an airstrip.
They have ports, an airstrip, and all these properties don't have neighbors around them, and they're access
isolated.
To highways.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, if that doesn't scream shady business, I don't know what does.
That's what I'm saying. And I feel like we were in the same situation with the Idaho 4 when we were talking about this, where, like, there's enough evidence to raise serious concerns here, right?
Yep.
And, so, yeah, 9 total, and they're all perfect for smuggling, lookouts, connections to highways, dark access. And here's another interesting part, too. So they have all these properties that they bought, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they have proof that when you buy land, what's the goal of buying land? To make money on it.
Yeah.
To make money on it.
Mm-hmm.
How much?
Is that the airstrip right there?
No, go up. Look at that stream. Where go down?
This is a river.
Yeah, it's a river. A river.
Kahachi?
It's a river. So it could be probably boated on. Yes.
Horse Bay?
Yep.
Horse Bay?
Yep. But so they had these properties, you guys, and they had these properties through major real estate booms, meaning the whole point in buying a property is to make money. Well, then why did they hold these properties, not build anything on them, and hold them through major real estate booms? Just sitting there, doing nothing.
They had to have had a purpose. No?
They had to have had a purpose. Okay. And another fun fact is from the first time that Alex and Barrett bought land together, okay, they bought it one in Alex's name and one in Barrett's name. When you look at by the 9th piece of land that they bought together, the ways that they were manipulating the system and the paper trail to hide it were getting more advanced and more advanced and more advanced. And this is all factual evidence that anybody can go look up. You can go look up these documents, and it started turning into things like where they were using similar names but just changing the ending. So like one would be Ski Resort and Dive LLC, and then the other one would be Ski Resort and Dive Management. Like, unless you were specifically knew what you were looking for, these things could be the same thing, but they're different. Where all of these LLCs, sole proprietors, businesses, or whatever, all tied back to Alex and Barrett. And it sounds like the wives knew about this when they were talking openly about all of this. The statements made, talking openly about it, everything.
So what happened? You know?
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Exactly what happened. And I don't want to get into the crime too much, but it makes me wonder what happened, okay?
Yep.
So, here's a situation that happened once Alex got arrested. So, the Post sent somebody out. Well, I guess let me take a step back, okay? So if you remember, the defense's strategy was that the Walterboro Cowboys, which is a local gang,
a drug gang.
Well, just a gang in general. They're violent. They do all the things that a gang does. Alex said was the people who ended his wife and child. Okay, well, a Post interviewer went out there to the Cowboys gang and interviewed a couple people that are in the gang, and one of them said word for word, and she has it recorded, that we're being railroaded because they caught a RICO case in 2017 and picked up the whole gang, by the way, and I'll give some more details in a second, but he said, we're being railroaded. Alex Murdaugh brings in more than half of the drugs in this state.
Yeah. That's wild.
It's wild.
More than half in the state?
More than half in the state, yes. Now,
so he's trying to claim that he racked up debt with them, and they're the ones supplying his drug habit, and he's pinning all his trafficking on them.
Correct. And here's what's interesting, too, is they keep using the word cartel when they're talking about this gang. This gang is like 15 people. 20 people.
Yeah, sure.
They're associated with the Bloods, but they're their own standalone gang. They are not a big gang, you guys. They aren't a big gang. They couldn't have been doing this. What was most likely happening was, or I'll put it this way. What appears, based on this evidence, could be happening is that Alex was the white-collar criminal helping hide the trafficking and smuggling that was coming into that state that was then being sent out to these guys. When he needed a cover story, he took the low man on the totem pole and threw him under the bus. Yeah. After Alex's defense team brought them into the fold, they got picked up on a RICO case, which is only for large gangs. This is not a large gang.
Yeah, he was supplying them. That RICO case should have been on him.
It could have been.
You know what's funny is the cousin that shot him, okay? Cousin Eddie, isn't that the one that shot him? He also claims that was his dealer, and he was getting them from the Cowboys.
I know. Don't
he
even
uses his cousin for everything. Every
get me
lie,
started.
every cover up. He's like, throwing my cousin Eddie under the bus.
Don't even get me started on that gunshot,
so
though,
stupid.
Because that whole thing is fake. I don't understand how news ran with a bullet bounced off his head. That's not possible from a rifle.
No, there's no way it bounced off of his head.
No. I think
so I thought he got shot in the head and survived, so it never even penetrated his head? They literally said it bounced off?
What Eddie says... And I do, based off what I saw, okay, it makes the most sense, is Alex called him out there and asked him to shoot him. Eddie said, no way, I am not doing it. And Alex tried to talk him into it. And Eddie grabbed the gun and shot it in the air.
Right.
Scared Alex. He fell backwards and hit his head. And that mark was from the ground. Yeah. But anyways, going back to the Cowboys, they aren't even big enough to be called a cartel. It doesn't add up, you guys. This is another one of those situations. How many coincidences are there in a murder? In my opinion, there shouldn't be any. So Alex is just coincidentally partnered with a convicted trafficker on 9 pieces of land. Alex coincidentally got his home for $5 from said trafficker. How many coincidences? Like,
and it has an airstrip and is next to a river that can be canoed on. A swamp boat, one of those little boats, could be used on it.
It can. Okay.
What are those called? The with the big fan on the back?
Yeah, the airboats or whatever.
Yep.
So, to me, you guys, I have a lot of question marks with this. I'm not saying this is what happened, but I am saying this needs a deeper look, okay? Anytime I see a situation where drugs could be involved, everybody always knows you got to look into the money and you got to look into the drugs, right? And one of the commitments we made to you guys is that we're going to bring you honest, intelligent, unscripted, and interesting conversation, right?
Yep.
And in my opinion, this is that. Now, everyone's heard of the jellyfish connection too, right? Okay, so he went into business with Barrett to essentially fish jellyfish, okay? It's a delicacy in the Asian markets, and it is a very tedious process. So on paper, it looks like they bought this land for jellyfish, okay? But in order to store and send these jellyfish, it's a 6-week process. You have to catch all the jellyfish in a certain way. You got to take them out. You got to dry them. You got to preserve them. Then you got to package them. And then you got to get them over to the Asian countries, right? Well, one thing led to another. They ended up not doing anything with the jellyfish, but that land was still there. There were trucks seen pulling up in the middle of the night to load or unload jellyfish and take off in, towards the highways or whatever. Some investigating was done on the Asian buyer, and that Asian buyer was a convicted money launderer. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, very, very. Okay. And all of these dealings, you guys, were hidden and buried and name swapped and LLCs and corporations, and all this is hidden, and all of it ties back to Alex, And one of the things that everyone was worried about was that he was going to get a sweetheart deal from the feds for rolling on people in this situation. Everyone wondered if it was about the dope. A lot of people asked questions about the Cowboys, but in all honesty, based on these coincidences and evidence, I feel like it's flipped. I feel like he was more likely to be dealing towards them. And maybe he wasn't directly involved in it. That doesn't change that you're supplying the land, the place, the ability, and you're running background defense as a lawyer. I can't think of a better person to have on your side than a lawyer. Oh, I can't believe I forgot this part. Did you know he was a sworn-in officer?
Alex?
Alex.
A sworn officer? Police officer?
He was a sworn police officer. It's not technically called a police officer. It is called a... Hang on here.
I think you've told me what it was before, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it's like an officer of the court, you guys. And essentially, you have the same power as a police officer, and you have the same ability to turn people away. So, Alex was essentially running the entire town with a badge and a sworn officer to arrest, to protect, to whatever.
How did he get that?
Because there's loopholes in the law in South Carolina where you can be sworn in as a temporary officer and you're given all the same rights.
What?
Yes. I think that the Cowboys gang was a red herring. I think it was a red herring, and there's no other way about it, okay? Now, let's turn directly to Alex here, you guys. So, remember, I said in the beginning of this video, did you find it? What was he?
I was trying to... So it says that former attorney Alex Murdaugh had such a cozy relationship with law enforcement in the Low Country that he put blue lights in his car with their blessing and carried a badge in case he needed a favor.
Solicitor officer. That's what it is. It's a solicitor officer.
Okay. Where did you see that?
That's the name of it. Oh. It's solicitor officer. It has same rights as police, and he even had lights in his car, okay? Yep. So he was law enforcement. And people are missing these parts, or they're not being highlighted, okay? So here, let's go back to him now. Let's put our focus on him, on Alex himself, okay? Mm-hmm. He said he was buying $60,000 a week in personal drugs. People ask questions, okay, so what? He said he was using 60 tablets of oxycodone a day, Percocet, okay? So Percocets come in either 5 milligram tablets or 10 milligram tablets, and they come with 325 milligrams of Tylenol in them. So if we do the math here, 60 tablets with 325 milligrams of Tylenol is 19,500 milligrams of Tylenol. You know what the overdose rate is? 7,000.
Yeah.
Impossible.
I knew when he was saying that it didn't make sense, just from my experience and, being around drugs, doing drugs. That sounded like so much Tylenol. I don't know how he wasn't on dialysis. Like, I don't know how his kidneys weren't shut down. I don't know how he was alive. Like, you can't get to a drug, tolerance that high and be taking that much Tylenol. Like, it would take a while to get a tolerance that high, if you even could, and to get to that point where you're taking that much Tylenol, like, your body would shut down.
It would.
There's no way.
It's literally impossible, okay? And you know what's funny is they had an expert come on and say, oh yeah, it's pretty common that, extensive users will be up to 50 or 60 tablets a day. I'm telling you right now, you guys, it is not possible. It is impossible to be taking 20,000 milligrams of Tylenol, and he said for 20 years. Impossible. I think Alex knows how much money he was making from the trafficking, from the smuggling, and he was trying to make the numbers add up to where that money could have gone. And we still don't know where. Okay? Now let's look at the drug half of those pills. There's one of two options here. If they're 5 milligram, then we're looking at 300 milligrams of oxycodone a day. If they're 10 milligram, we're looking at 600 milligrams of oxycodone a day. What that transitions to is to 600 to 1,200 milligrams of morphine. Okay? So the average dose of morphine, because there's always a correlation on any opiate, you guys. So oxycodone is 1.5 to 2 times stronger than morphine is.
Yeah, the same way you would describe like beer, wine, liquor.
Yep.
Like there's a strength level.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So the average dose, right, of morphine for somebody in severe pain is 10 to 20 milligrams every 4 hours. Well, you take that, 10 to 20 milligrams, we'll just do it at the 20, and then you times that by 6 times 4, 24 hours in a day. That's 120 milligrams of morphine maximum. Now, I'm assuming, okay, that a user can use 3 to 5 times that. That still only puts you at like 3 to 500 milligrams of morphine. And he's claiming he's using, in correlation, 600 to 1200 milligrams of morphine. An unquestionably deadly dose of morphine is 700 milligrams. Unquestionable. Unquestionable. It doesn't matter if you have tolerance, doesn't matter anything.
So what if you're splitting it up and taking it throughout the day?
Doesn't matter. Does not matter.
Well, yeah, if you take it in small parts throughout the day and you reach at the end of the day 700, like your body goes through it.
No, not because of the half-lives. Mm-mm.
So your body wouldn't burn through it and you would OD?
Nope. Everything I looked up says that's way on the high side. On the low side is 70 milligrams. People have died with 70 milligrams of morphine. 700's a stretch. You're getting up there to like be able to kill a rhino probably. What I'm getting at is this: it's not possible. This is not possible, the numbers that he's saying.
No, I don't think they're possible.
It should have been called. Like, there's something going on here.
I'm trying to see what that looks like in my head, and it just, I don't know.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And another interesting thing, too, as I'm doing this research, so opiates always look a very specific way. The pupils are pinpointed, a ton of sweating, normally always itching their face or nose or whatever. I watched body cam footage of the night of the incident. I've watched court footage when he said he was still using as that was going on. I've watched other footage. I've looked at pictures. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, because to be taking that much a day, there is no way you could just not take it one day. You're going to be in such severe withdrawal. It's ridiculous.
It's impossible. However, there were also statements, though, that apparently his wife and son found bags of pills in their house. And that added to the separation of her and him and everything, because they were kind of living apart. So the boat accident really took a toll on her. You know, they were the kings of the state.
Yeah.
Like, the kings of the state. And in that town, they literally owned the town, okay? So they were able to go and visit with Barrett and his wife and his family and talk openly about trafficking and all this stuff, whatever. He even had pictures above his fireplace and all that. The boating accident happened, and the national spotlight hit them. And they couldn't handle it.
I bet.
So that brings me to wonder what really happened that ended those two people.
Oh, what if... maybe I shouldn't even say it.
What?
I mean, I just came up with thinking, like, that just strikes me as she couldn't handle it anymore, okay? And the son just got in that big old ordeal with the boat crash. Mm-hmm. What if she wanted to rat on him to save her son? And was like, you're the real problem in this family. I should give them you to save your son.
Yeah. I
I have a hard time with that, though.
I have a hard time with that too,
That
because
they
he
wouldn't.
tried to
He's
end
a lawyer.
himself for his other kid. So, do we have a father that shows
Yeah, but that affects
much
another
favoritism?
family. That affects another family. That affects more people.
What do you mean? That affects more
If he
people?
turns himself in and saves his son, that doesn't just affect him. That affects everyone else who's implicated.
Correct.
And he
Right.
could be like, no, they will literally come and kill you guys.
Yeah. I just wonder if there's some kind of worth to this idea that somebody else could have done it, you know? And this is just theory because, again, the coincidences. There are too many coincidences here. How many coincidences do we allow in a murder investigation? There shouldn't be any.
And the 2 guns has been a point of contention in this case from the beginning. If you followed it, you know that.
And
People
the guns are still missing.
Yeah.
But
and
2.
They're
so.
missing, and 2 different a shotgun and a rifle. I don't remember the kind.
A shotgun and a rifle, a very specific rifle that was actually stolen from what's his name? Paul, the one that, yeah, I think it's Paul, was stolen from Paul months earlier. It was a Christmas present, all this stuff, but they believe it was that rifle, and that
Paul's
rifle
the
has
son,
been
right?
missing for a long time.
The
Yes.
son that passed.
Yes. So, you know, maybe we can get into a story on them digging deeper specifically into the event that happened that night. But you guys...
We kind of already did, but it was a while back.
Yeah.
And we didn't know as much.
You guys, this, again, violent crime, drugs. I'm sticking to my 90%, okay?
Yeah, I just...
The 10% that I leave is for serial killers and road ragers.
I've almost been shot by a road rager.
I know.
So the drugs is such a big deal for me because I just know, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too, that when you do something wrong in you're involved in criminal activity, you do something wrong, people think that you screwed them over or that you will or whatever. Sometimes they can go after your family.
Yes.
So the fact that it was his family at the house, you know, it makes me... From the beginning, I have thought, how did he do it?
So
how did he do that?
You know what's interesting? And
I think he knew,
trying
if
to
anything. And I think he deserves to be where he is.
No matter what the outcome is, he deserves to be where he's at after all these coincidences and everything I'm seeing. But I'm not trying to be mean when I say this. Alex Murdaugh does not strike me as an intelligent guy. I understand he's a lawyer. I get it. Like, I understand it. But all of these decisions were so poorly looked at and handled and completed. I could be wrong. I
don't know. To the level of how well they were doing this, I mean, it could have been the other guy. What's his name again?
Barrett.
Mm-hmm. It could have been him really being the mastermind behind all of it.
It could have been.
And maybe Murdaugh was just a pawn in his game.
Yep. I just know that I keep going back to coincidences. Coincidences stand out and they bother me in murder cases, you guys. So the coincidence that... Barrett is a confirmed convicted trafficker with multiple occasions where he's been caught with huge, massive loads of dope. There's a coincidence that he's in a business partnership with Alex where they've owned 9 or 10 pieces of land, co-owned it. They're seen all over together like BFFs.
Yeah.
Barrett sells his family's land that also has an airstrip, access to water, no neighbors, and a quick drive to a highway, to an interstate highway. The coincidences. And the fact that Alex openly came out and said he is a massive drug addict. I think that Alex knew people knew about drugs in him, and he had to come up with a way to associate himself with drugs without being brought into the fold as a trafficker. And claiming you're an addict is a way to do that.
Yeah. For sure.
Yep. But I'm curious what you guys think. And do you see the connections here that I'm seeing? Or am I just way off the reservation with this, you know?
Yeah, I want to know, is this the airstrip they're talking about?
I don't know.
Because there is, like, something that reminds me of, like, an airport where it's, like,
it doesn't
runways.
show it, and their airstrip had blacktop.
Oh. Okay.
But anyways, I'm
trying to
curious
find
what
it.
you guys think, and yeah.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys think about it, if you've seen any of this, because when we first covered it, I didn't know all of this at all.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious if they're going to come after him for some of this now.
Yeah, technically he's still the landowner in these situations, and they don't want it to go to Buster, even though all his finances have been frozen, everything. Essentially, they could still be using those pieces of land while he's still the owner. But, again, I want to know what you guys think. Am I way off the reservation here, or do these coincidences stand out? Do they make sense to you?
Yeah.
Let us know.
What's your theory? What's the connection?
What do you think?